Hello, Burlokk.
Hello, Grumsworth.
And hello to all of you, our fine band of intrepid fellow adventurers, joining us here at the Preambull, your every so often digest of everything exactly hobby-like.
That's right. Exactly hobby-like.
Yeah.
And on this day, we're going to be bringing you a wealth of magnificence, a top-up of our weekly hobby progress from the pages of our dusty journals. A main topic, I guess, of monolithic proportions. And then we'll be stuck in the reeds for a while with a ghost of a tiger. So bear with us for a while as we do that.
I mean, that sounds ideal. I'm looking forward to those reads.
Oh, there are going to be some good reads. Talking about journals and what we've been doing, Grumsworth. I'm assuming you've been up to some sort of hobby. The old man's salve must have been running strong this week for you. What have you been up to?
I've been smearing that salve everywhere this week, Burlokk. Absolutely anywhere I can reach, And this week, it has reached mostly the remaining two gangers of the now consuming all of my hobby time life, the Knights of Doghead. I know I keep going on about them. I almost hate saying their name. I think I might actually change it by the end of the project, but...
Okay.
Just
Knights
because...
of Doghead are their work in progress title. Is it the working title, is it?
Well, it wasn't meant to be, but, this is becoming a bit of a saga now. But anyway, the last two gangers are now complete. They're on their bases. They're looking pretty crisp. Got them done kind of speedy compared to the rest. There may be a little bit of a falling off of detail, but the sort of prime areas, the white masks, the grubby robes, the rusty weapons, you know the drill. They're all good and locked in place. So they're done.
Nice.
One remaining member left, Saint Biff himself, their brave leader. So maybe over the next week, I'll get him done. But once he's done, they can all get their Tester's dull coat spray, lock them in all,
Beautiful.
all nice and secure. There'll be no scratches off these things, nothing, any of the tiny bits of shine that have been left on by ink and such, they will all vanish, and the job will be complete.
Oh, that moment.
Oh, I can't wait for that moment. I can't wait for it.
Oh, that'll be the chapter in the journal complete, won't it? And you'll have some beautiful miniatures in your already beautiful looking cabinet, I'm sure.
Thank you very much. They will be added to it, and they will actually take quite a centre spot because my cabinet recently cleared out the middle shelf.
I'd like to learn about what you removed to make way. I'm sure we'll hear about that another day.
Yeah, that's a conversation for another day. That's quite a long conversation.
The clearing out of old hobby.
The clearing out of old hobby cabinets. Yeah, right. But there's a nice big flat, empty, polished up space just waiting for these guys.
Perfect.
Hopefully they'll be able to get in there soon. And then there'll be some room either side of them.
Well, the work I've seen so far and the work that all of our wonderful listeners have seen as well, if you've logged onto YouTube, that is, and had a look at our videos.
If you have,
then you would have seen some beautiful progress pictures that Grumsworth has supplied for us. And they do look really nice. So I really look forward to seeing them in their completed state.
So do I, Burlokk. So do I. So then, that has basically been my hobby journal. There's a small footnote in the journal, my continuing research into whether I have the stamina, patience, coinage, or anything else needed to embark on a bit of a 40k journey. We'll see about that. But some more research has been done. I'm slightly hopeful. Who knows? That's just the way it goes sometimes. You have to do a little bit of research.
It could end up just a small endeavour, but if it does so, then that's just as good in my opinion.
It might end up being a single, lonely Catachan jungle fighter. Who knows? It's
one of the old
that.
metal ones, I'm sure.
Yes, one of the old metal ones. The only ones, to my mind.
Yeah.
But Burlokk,
yes.
you must have some notes in that dusty old book you call a journal.
Oh, let me have a look. Actually, it's been somewhat busy again for me. It seems since doing the preamble with your good self there, Grumsworth, I've managed to be a little bit more proactive in my hobby. Either that, or I just never noticed. I don't feel like I've been any more productive, but perhaps I have. I'll have to check the graphs at the end of the day. Let me see.
He's got wolves at his door, ladies
Oh,
and gentlemen.
the walls are howling. What's in your glass, Grumsworth?
Today we have a sorry-looking pale ale, but I can assure you that it's quite strong, very good, wheaty.
Wheaty.
Cheers.
Cheers. Oh, I don't have anything quite as hop-filled, malty or wheaty, but I do have the leather tankard
Of justice.
and, the tankard of justice, just like those creatures from the old TV show Nightmare.
Exactly like.
There should have been the tankard of justice.
I mean, that's definitely going to have to crop up, isn't it? Yes. Your hobby journal, Burlokk.
Yes, my hobby journal. So it's been a good and productive, as I say. I've been working on some Eldar Guardians with a friend of mine who I've mentioned on previous episodes that we've been getting through his army. He's a new player to the game 40k. Conveniently, there's a new version, 9th edition, coming out soon. So he'll be able to get his teeth into that at the same time as all the other gamers out there. But he's never played any of our hobby games, Warhammer 40k, any of the specialist games, any of those. Never really played any of them before. We're working on his Eldar, and so far we're a unit of Dire Avengers down, we're a unit of Striking Scorpions down, and now we've done a unit of Guardians. So the mainstay of the Eldar army are the Guardians. We've done them a nice shade of red.
Lovely.
We don't know what the craft world is yet. Normally the red is the same hand, if I'm remembering
That's right. Yeah. Lots of jet bikes.
Lots of jet bikes. Unfortunately, he only has about 4 jet bikes in his force, but they can obviously be added to if need be. So at the moment, it's probably going to be more a Bill Tan style army list, given that there's lots of aspect warriors.
Aspects, yeah. Very good.
Or either that, or we'll make up our own craft world altogether. We'll have to see what he prefers to do.
Mm-hmm.
So we've done those. It was really nice to get some paint to brush. We use some, as I've said before, some fairly simple techniques. Some basic washing over a coloured primer, some dry brushing to highlight, some nice block solid colours to paint in some of the details like the guns, some of the armor plates on the back, etc., just to break up the colour a little bit more. And he was over the moon with them. We got them finished in one evening, so 10 Guardians, including the 2 crewmen for the heavy weapons platform. And so they were done in start to finish in one evening. All the base coats, all the highlights, all the shading, the bases included. So we managed to get all of those done. That's been sort of one half of my hobby journey this week, and my second half was something of a more personal project, which is my ongoing, ever-present Chaos Dwarfs. The big hats from the 90s, of course.
The big hats of fire and ash.
Oh, praise Hashut indeed.
Praise Hashut.
So the Axemen that I've been working on, I've got probably about a dozen of the plastic Axemen that were released. Another couple of dozen of the metal Axemen, but I'm getting through each pose at a time. Yeah, I'm getting through those just so that I can nail the order in which I paint certain areas of the miniature. The colours that I use, etc., are all going to be mixed up very slightly from miniature to miniature so that nothing's identical, but they all have that same uniformity to them. I went for a nice bright old school 90s colour scheme, so the red armour, the red scale mail that they all wore.
Perfect, lovely, yeah.
I mean, coloured chainmail, etc., is you don't see that much these days, and it is quite reminiscent of those old days, I think. So I've adopted that as a little scheme. And yeah, another 5 guys have been done, but I've specifically worked on their bases this week because I'm mounting each miniature on some 2mm cork, which I'm then putting on top of the base, and I'm cracking it all up and making it look a bit broken. And around these cracked bits of stone that these miniatures are standing on, rivers of lava, etc., and bubbling magma, they're going to be sitting on those proudly. And it also makes them look a little taller.
Yeah, which I don't think they need to those big hats.
Those big hats, they're much more imposing now.
Yeah, I bet they do as well. I bet they do.
That's been my hobby week, really. It's been lots of paint to brush. I mean, I'm thinking about, I've had my mind on my Chaos Dwarfs more than the Eldar, because they took one evening, as I say. And with my Chaos Dwarfs, they are the old school, you know. So I was definitely in old school mode. And then chatting to yourself the other day, you're talking about your 40k journey into ninth. I espied something on the horizon that has been spoiled or leaked for a couple of weeks now.
Oh yes,
and that is the Necron army has had a bit of an upgrade.
a drastic one.
And I do like the Necrons. I like their history, their flavor, their story in the 40k universe. They fit very nicely. And one of their miniatures in particular, I was always a big fan of, and that's the monolith.
The monolith, that great big chunky centerpiece, really, often for a Necron army. Huge, great kind of pyramid, metal, stony looking structure, floats along.
That's it. Yeah.
That's the one, right?
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. So the monolith was, you know, as I remember it, pretty large. And this new version that I saw was also pretty large. It looks a little larger, in fact, with lots of extra details and things, which I'd like to discuss with you, Grumsworth, if you don't mind.
I mean, that sounds fine. I think that sounds a good idea. We can have a little chat about the new monolith. We can compare some of its interesting similarities with the old version. And I think we can praise the work that has been done on this most recent version to make it look less like a sort of interesting and unusual sort of Lego kit toy. I found it looked like a toy set on the battlefield. It might have had something to do with a certain piece of it, right?
Yeah, I think
I know of what we speak.
Yes.
So I think we'll move on to that particular bit at some point. I think it's worth maybe. How about the first time you saw a monolith in the flesh, the Necron monolith? You see, this thing was. It was released. The original version was somewhere around the early 2000s, probably 2002. Not long after the. Yeah, do you think that's right?
Yeah, it wasn't long after the army release, was it?
That's right. Yeah,
like a year and a half, perhaps 2 years or so, ish.
Yeah, I think that's right to come through. And we were presented with this great big slab-sided pyramid-like, wasn't it? Really, this four-sided great thing made of, could be either metal, could be some sort of stone. I believe it was actually, lore-wise, it's a living metal, isn't it?
That's right. Yeah, it was made of the same stuff that all the Necrons here are sort of comprised of, and that is that living metal, that sort of nanotech that can repair itself,
regenerates,
it can regenerate. Yeah, looks really cool. Look, it looked incredible. The first time I saw that monolith, I'm pretty sure it would have been in the pages of White Dwarf, actually, which was the first time I saw it in print or just in general. But the first time I saw it in the flesh was in the cabinet of my local Games Workshop.
Okay, yeah. And
it'd been painted up in this gleaming silver that the Necrons was ubiquitous of the Necron, the Necron style back then, wasn't it?
It really was
silver. But this wasn't the first time I'd ever seen the Necrons, in fact, not even before their main release, because there was one available, wasn't there, quite early on?
There was.
On the pages of White Dwarf, wasn't there? There was a freebie they gave away.
Yeah, a free Necron warrior.
I remember getting that White Dwarf. I remember getting five copies of that White Dwarf, in fact.
Did you really?
So I could get 5 Necron warriors, all of the same pose. Well, I think there was 2.
Your own.
There was one with the gun down and one with the gun up.
The traditional hero pose, wasn't it? Gun sort of presented upright to the sky. That's it. One arm held out inexplicably. Yeah, they were given up. They were metal as well, weren't they?
They were.
A free metal miniature. Can you imagine that in this day and age, folks? And from a race that had never been seen before.
Well, we say never seen before.
Oh no! Don't go there.
Yeah, well, there wasn't there? There was. I will mention it once and only once. The Chaos Androids of Space Crusade.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. The Chaos Android.
The harbingers of the Necron race. I'm sure of it.
I'm totally sure. I remember the first time seeing the small release of Necron miniatures, all in metal there, and that's exactly what I thought they were. I thought, what? The Chaos armies are now going to have access to androids. Wow. These sort of skull-faced mechanical bone boys rolling 3 white dice in Space Crusade, I'll have you know. Yeah, but they weren't that. They were a separate race all of their own, the Necrons there. And yeah, so sometime after that miniature being available, a couple of others, I think there was the Immortals.
Yeah,
were
very
put out in
hunched,
metal.
very large shoulders. They were sort of I guess they were modeled to be like the Terminator version of the Necron warrior.
Yes, yeah,
or the
yeah, yeah.
or the Orc mega armor version. You know,
Yeah.
just the larger hulking warrior with the double barreled Gauss cannon.
That's right. Yes, yeah, yeah. And there was a sort of almost land speeder esque craft, wasn't there? A little
That's right,
Necron
yeah.
warrior, sort of laid back, reclining, slouched back in a sort of skimmer type situation.
Destroyers, I think they were called, don't they? Yeah, Necron destroyers.
And they became the destroyers that we all know and love today, if we do.
Well, I mean, not really, but I mean,
No.
I like them for what they are, you know, what they represent. But you know, as a general rule, you know, destroyers
No.
only because I had a horrendous time when I had to put together dozens and dozens of destroyers at one point, and at least half of those were the heavy destroyers, and they had the long metal heavy Gauss cannons.
They did. Yeah, you're right.
And they were just a pain because we've spoken before on a podcast about pinning. Obviously, I would always like to pin a metal miniature or metal part to a plastic part. But given that the Necrons were so spindly anyway, it was just a pain.
Yeah, I can imagine that.
So whilst I love the destroyers, I don't like building them. I don't know how they've changed in recent years, whether they're all now plastic or not. They must be.
Well, with the same sort of previews that have the new monolith, which we will get onto, folks. We're getting there. We're winding up. Yeah, so there are new destroyers. There are new Necron warriors. I'm sure you've all seen the pictures and stuff. A vast improvement on the old, I would say. And the monolith, despite it being quite iconic when it was released, it has now been, I would say, fully surpassed by this new version of it.
Yeah, I would entirely agree with you. It looks really, really good. I don't know, size-wise, I don't know how it compares, because when I think back to the time when I first saw the monolith, that was the biggest thing you could get in 40k. You know, if you had if you had a Necron army and you were then suddenly gifted with this new figure that was released, this monolith, you were like jumping for joy because you'd have the biggest thing on the table. All your mates would want to come around for a game to try and destroy it, and they were hardy. They weren't taken down easy. Let me tell you.
Super hardy, super hardy. That regenerative metal and their big chunkiness.
Park it on the battlefield, and of course it works as like a conduit for the Necron warriors as well, doesn't it? So they can warp in through this monolith at the same time. So yeah, it was really iconic, really cool, massive piece of kit. Probably, to my mind, one of the biggest things they'd released at that stage, barring some of the Forge World stuff.
I would say that's probably right, actually. I think for a plastic kit, it was one of the largest that you could come by, wasn't it? Certainly.
Yeah, I don't know if, pound for pound plastic wise, if it was, had the most in it, because obviously you had, I think the Land Raider was around at that point.
Which is a brick, isn't it?
Which was a bit of a brick. There were other large kits about from the Warhammer range. But certainly, certainly this sort of thing and the way it looked, it was certainly nothing like it, nothing we ever expected to see. For this new model to now be released or now be on its way to being released, something equally as exciting has to happen with it, don't you think?
It does, and I think they've tried to convey that with with this new version. It is in all aspects, I think, just a vast improvement. What we're looking at here, for those of you that have seen the pictures, you'll probably be able to get a lot of this from it. But we're going to have a little bit of a sort of comparative dive on it and the old monolith there. But what we have here is something that still retains the pyramid form, shape, and look. A lot of the key features of the monolith still remain with this thing, which we'll go into. But all over as a piece, it just looks like the thing has had a massive blast with the detail gun. There is an immense amount of detail on this very, very large looking model. I think, to me, it looks like it's now sat on a knight base.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like that, doesn't it? It's difficult to tell because I don't know if this is a separate base, scale-wise, a separate base supplied with the
Maybe,
monolith. But to all
maybe.
intents, I mean, it looks like it's a night base, certainly, doesn't it?
This kind of shows us a rough sort of scale of the model. I mean, to me, it kind of looks. We've got a Necron warrior on the particular image that we're looking at. One of the cool things about this new monolith is the sort of portal, which is one of the central pieces, design pieces of the monolith. Essentially, it is kind of like it's a troop transport, isn't it?
Yeah.
Or one of its functions are it teleports Necron warriors in. When it does so, we've got this kind of glowing gate at the front. And the latest version there has a sort of half-formed Necron warrior stepping from the ether.
Yeah.
So we can use that guy as a scaling tool, can't we?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if the new style Necron warriors are larger than the old ones. I think they probably are.
Maybe
slightly larger than the older Necron warriors, who were quite hunched over, if I remember correctly. So this guy, potentially being slightly bigger than the old Necron warriors anyway, looks quite diminutive in comparison to this monolith.
He really does,
in the same way that the older Necron warriors looked compared to the older monolith. So I think it's fair to say this one probably is a slightly scale up from the last one.
I think so. Looking at it, I think it is. It appears to me a little bit wider as well,
Yes.
as well as tall. It looks like more of a chunk.
Yeah, that's right. And I mean, over the years since the original monolith years ago in 2002, did you say was released?
That's right. Yeah.
In the years 18 odd years, since then,
wow.
The hobby, I think, has evolved, obviously, as a whole thing. And as that's progressed, I found that original monolith has just appeared to be a bit smaller. It's got smaller and smaller over time as other large plastic kits have been released, and that the whole scale of things has evolved. This monolith sort of has almost shrunk over the years. So then when we see this, which now looks that much more imposing, and as far as we can tell, is scaled up a little bit more, I think it just makes it look that much more impressive. And it's like I get the same feelings looking at this monolith as I did when I saw
the first
monolith. Now I'm looking at a computer screen, seeing spoiled images of it. I'm going to have to see it in the flesh before I get that wow factor from it, which I'm sure will come along. Because there's other interesting features that have changed about this figure compared to the old one as well, isn't there?
There is, yeah. Where the old one was kind of a very slab-sided, quite smooth in most places, very bare metal-looking thing. What we've got here with the new monolith, like almost every surface, even the areas that appear to be metallic and appear to be forged of one piece of metal, almost the kind of like the ribs that sprout from its top, right? Even they have the detail of wear and tear and kind of weathering. Yeah.
These are the things that surround that central globe.
Yeah, which is actually that's a good place to go, isn't it? Because that's one of the biggest changes to this model, the central globe. Yeah, because now
it's like a multifaceted globe, isn't it? It looks a little bit like one of those gimmicky 100-sided dice.
That's right.
Like a scaled up D20.
I'd love it if it was.
Yeah, wouldn't that be funny? But this thing looks. I mean, that in itself, it looks 100 times better than the old one, because the old one, as mentioned, as we alluded to earlier.
We alluded to it, didn't we?
Had a whopping great green see-through plastic, luminescent crystal job that was sort of stuck into the top of it.
It did have that, yeah. It always reminded me of you used to be able to get these sweets back in the day. You can probably still get them now. I say back in the day, but this was only about 50 years ago, right? And they were sort of like a little plastic ring that you would push onto your finger there, and then sprouting from it was a great kind of boiled sweet kind of diamond, right?
Yeah.
And the monolith appeared like it just had one of these just like rammed in its top hole.
That's right.
And that was that, right? Whereas now we have this it's a really beautiful looking piece of the model, actually. I think maybe some people are going to hate it, but it would be a very easy thing to swap out for something different.
You could. I mean, I can see it being painted up to look like a golf ball. with Dunlops
Yes.
written across it, to be fair.
Yes, I mean, that would be
That's,
perfect.
that's only if you're memeing on this, and I don't think this deserves to be memed on just yet, because I do think actually that it's a vast improvement over the old one.
Yeah, even with its kind of golf bally 100-sided dice piece in there.
Yeah.
That area itself is really nicely modelled. We've got this kind of orb levitating, suspended there between these two curves. There's some lightning playing over it.
Yeah, those arcs of eldritch energy and stuff. They're obviously what's suspending this orb or this globe.
A vast improvement there. Because arguably that's the kind of focal point of this huge model, isn't it? Really?
Yeah. And if unless the rules have changed, that old prism in the middle at the top used to be sort of the main weapon that would whip out and lash out at enemy.
You're quite right. Yeah. Of course.
So unless the rules have changed and things are a little bit different which haven't been released yet, as far as I understand, the rules.
I don't believe so. No.
It might be a like for like situation, or it might be something different.
Yeah, that makes good sense. It looks like it still might be that, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It now has, creeping up behind it there, it has what looks to be what do you call those things? Is it
they used
one
to
of the spider type thing? Tomb spider?
Yeah. Although this one looks like it's a little bit elongated.
A wraith,
almost like a mixture between a wraith and a tomb spider. They like got some sort of new Necron tier creature, perhaps, that they're going to introduce into the lore, perhaps. I don't know. But yeah, it looks like a bit of a blend between the old style wraiths and the tomb spider, sort of mashed into one. Perhaps some sort of keeper or maintenance Necron for the monolith.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, that's exactly what I was thinking. This guy looks like your servitor or your tech marine, doesn't he? He looks like he's cultivating and lovingly caring for the 100-sided dice there.
That's it, yeah. And I love the way he's sort of peering over the top of that central globe.
He is, isn't he? Yeah,
as if he's just spying what's in the distance, what's on the way.
I think I would be tempted to remove it myself, although I like it for the detail it brings.
Yeah.
I think it takes away some of the sinister element of it.
It does, yeah. I don't know if this is the little creature that perhaps maybe targets for the monolith. It could. This is what I mean. It's difficult to know exactly what this thing is or what it does until we see some of the rules in the book.
I mean, maybe he does nothing. Maybe he's just there for flavour.
Absolutely, and I would love that.
Yeah, I would love that, because he would be whipped off straight away. Right?
Yeah, and I'd use him for something else.
Absolutely, yeah. Have him peering over a different rock.
I'd have him reclining in an old metal destroyer.
Oh, that would be it. Very good. Yeah, I like that image. Yeah. Yep. Right. So working down from that focal point, that very important piece of the model, the monolith sides now have got a lot of texture and detail on them. They're kind of panelled, but it appears in a metal fashion, but it has the look of stone about it as well, doesn't it? Something in between.
Yeah, I really like it, actually.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah. It's got some of the sort of Necron sort of hieroglyphic inscriptions on it, things like this.
Yeah.
There's lots of wear and tear on it.
Yeah, that's what I think is really good. Now, I mean, it looks as though it
looks old, like real old, doesn't it?
And that's exactly what the Necrons are, aren't they? They're an ancient race, presumed dead, unknown about until all the tomb worlds awoke and they lit up, and all of a sudden this new threat emerged from deep beneath the sands, from these old pyramids that had lain dormant for millennia. And I like the way this thing looks, as if it can sort of close up, like so it's as if the whole thing's sort of spread apart, like something out of Stargate. I get a lot of Stargate vibes from the Necrons.
I think the designers did as well.
Yeah, so it looks like it's all opened out, and these sort of more light-coloured stonework pieces at the top, next to those metal ribs, they've almost raised up and out as this thing's opened and come to life.
Really looks like it, yeah. The whole thing looks to have like a lot of mobility, in as much as it appears, the way it's modelled, it appears like it could close up to almost resemble a stone structure. And it looks like it is maybe upon activation or powering, the whole thing starts to levitate, and then these layers open up, revealing the sort of portal piece in the center, which is another lovely bit of the model.
Allowing the Necron legions to march through the warp gate inside this monolith that's probably been sitting in some desert for 2 million years, and all of a sudden this thing somehow out of
Awakens.
nowhere comes to life. The electric green eldritch energy sparks this globe into life. The invasion begins. This is like something that's been lying dormant for centuries, millennia, and that's what I love about this external armor compared to the old one, is that it looks like it's ancient. The other one
does,
could be painted to look ancient or whatever, but that requires a lot of work from the modeler, the painter, to get that kind of look about it, whereas this comes with all of that sort of built on top of the old blueprint.
It really does, doesn't it? Yeah. And we can see it in there are other areas that kind of allude to the ancientness of this structure, vehicle type thing. It looks like it's crumbling down below, doesn't it?
The inside
on the internals
section as well. It does look like it's very, very old and crumbling away. You're right. Yeah,
it looks like this thing may well be held together by that energy core centerpiece as well. I can imagine the stone and metal of this contraption sort of being held in check and in shape and in place by whatever eldritch energies are powering it.
Yeah, I do like the upgrade to what would have been the old Gorse cannons in the corners of this pyramid. They look like they've had a bit of an upgrade, bit of a change. There might be a different weapon altogether for all we know at this stage, but they look different, don't they? Whereas before they looked like twin-linked Gorse blasters.
Or triple Gorse blasters,
Whereas these ones
stick together,
look interesting. They've got sort of this, I don't know, this sort of housing around it. It looks quite spiky and pointy, and the inside, these energy coils are glowing green.
Yeah, there's something very kind of Tesla coil about it, isn't there?
Yeah, there is actually.
That sort of Christmas tree type weapon, but actually looks fairly sinister.
It does.
They look really decent in there. I've seen a couple of different pictures of this miniature, and it appears like there are going to be several different loadout options for it. Yeah, so you're going to be able to equip it for, I assume there'll be a sort of infantry flaying many-shot blast weapon or some such.
Or the anti-tank variety, maybe.
Yeah,
But I mean, that's the good thing about the monolith. It's just sturdy, isn't it? It's big. It's almost. It looks indestructible. And I do actually like how above that portal in the central section, where the sides have opened out, the symbol of the Necron race is proudly displayed.
Yeah, that's really nice, isn't it? Yeah. It is. It's the largest piece of symbolism on there, isn't it? Everything else is quite small in comparison. So again, your eyes are probably drawn to that after looking at the power core energy source there, straight down to that. And then beneath, as we've mentioned, this wonderful piece, which is showing a Necron warrior stepping from nothingness into reality.
That's it. And he is stepping because there's a little set of stairs.
Which is really cute.
That extended out. Just
But they wouldn't have him just plop out there and fall on the ground.
Oh, why not?
He needs to comfortably walk down.
Necrons get back up again when they get shot. I'm sure they get back up again if they fell out of a monolith.
Exactly right. Yeah, I kind of assume. I mean, I really like the look of the stairs. I think it's a funny little addition.
Looks like a bone structure, just got a bit of a spine, doesn't it? Almost.
I think it's definitely evocative of that. Yeah. In the same way that those metal pieces towards the upper portion of the miniature have a rib-like quality about them. There are the sort of common signs of mortality in all of the Necron architecture, aren't there?
That's right. Yeah, that overbearing idea of walking death.
The dead.
Yeah, and of course that's because these robots, sold their souls essentially for immortality, and what they got was something they didn't quite bargain for. Damn those Catan!
The Catan. They were really sort of working the old sort of genie angle, weren't they? In that way,
but there was a they were quite enigmatic in the early days. There was just the very slim. I believe it was the 3rd edition codex, might be the 4th edition codex for them.
It
wasn't particularly.
It's like a pamphlet, wasn't it?
They were really small back then. You can sort of see why they did it. Nice and quick. Get your rules in there. They can charge less, but they didn't. the Necrons and the Catan specifically, they were mentioned very early on in the history of 40k. You had
Yes.
the Calidus assassin had the Catan phase sword, if you remember rightly,
She
attached
did.
to her.
That's right. Yeah.
And that was
yeah.
a bit of that's an interesting name for a piece of war gear, but actually it's linked to something far deeper, far greater,
very
perhaps
cool. Yeah.
old ancient knowledge that the Officio Assassinorum once held, or do still hold, and
Mm.
had for a long time. And so that was, they were made mention of in little segments throughout the history of the 40k lore. And then when the Necrons were they landed and they became a thing, the Catan models were released, the Deceiver, the Nightbringer, and they were again, what the hell are these creatures? They're like, are they the lords of the Necrons? What are they? And then as slowly over time the lore was fleshed out, for want of a better word, of course, these are walking skeletons. But
pretty good, Burlokk. Pretty good.
They as the lore progressed and became a bit more in depth, and more was learned about the Necron race through novels and through codex supplements and all the like. It became clear that the Catan were responsible for the downfall, essentially, of the Necron race, that were a once proud, powerful people who gave up their lives, their souls for immortality. So they're a kind reminder.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. If a star god happens upon you and says, "I can help you out with some stuff. I can grant you a wish or two," like, be super careful when you take their hand and go, "I want this," because
that's it.
You might end up as a walking skeleton.
Yeah, mind you, being a walking skeleton is one thing, but being a walking skeleton that is made of a metal that self-repairs, I don't know. That's
It has its advantages,
It certainly does. Yeah.
I mean, they're quite handsome-looking things, aren't they?
Right? They are. They really are. As is this new monolith, really, isn't it? It's beautiful. And actually, one thing I do like actually is the sides. You have where these large metal ribs come down from the top that house this orb. There's like pipes that run down, which perhaps feed energy or perhaps exhaust energy out the bottom, because there seemed to be some sort of exhaust vents along the one side of this monolith. Can you see those?
It does look like that. I had initially assumed that they were the engines by which it levitates. But I I prefer your theory there, Burlokk. I like the idea that they are venting some sort of unseen excess power. So it's another unknowable piece of Necron technology, which is one of the reasons that I think that they're quite compelling as 40k races go. There is a lot of what they have going on visually and lore-wise is kind of open to interpretation, isn't it? They look so, aside from the fact that the Necron infantry, we'll say, to encompass the majority of them, appear like something recognizably, they look like a human skeleton. But that basically, that is where it ends. The rest of their war gear, their transports, their heavier vehicles,
and whatever cultural remnants are there still left over from wherever they once were.
That's right. Yeah. There are things kind of left behind in the architecture of all that we've spoke about there. But what I like about it is it looks very distinctly alien, as well as being old.
For sure.
Which I think that's quite a hard thing to be pushing out there into the 40k universe, in as much as it is a big old place story wise, but it's
infinite,
also
really,
packed.
Isn't it?
It is infinite. But if you were then tasked with designing a new race, and they came to you and said, "We need something that looks kind of old and deathly. We want a sort of 40k undead, but we want it to look really alien looking and sort of unknowable and a little bit kind of cosmic horror."
And it is.
I think so. Yeah, and that the entire new range of Necrons has a lot of that vibe going on. There's a lot of kind of four-legged type critters, long sort of scuttling.
That's very centipedal insectoid. They if you look at some of the other new miniatures that have been released, they are sort of very long, thin, whip-like and do look a lot more alien. I mean, the only thing I can really relate it to, if it comes to other franchises, perhaps, or other tropes, you've got, as we've mentioned, the Stargate, which I think feeds into a lot of the architectural design behind some
I
of the
agree.
Necron machines. But I think that's where that ends, because you've got that very obvious Egyptian-esque style look about some of their architecture and some of their design.
Yeah.
But I think the only other thing I can get it close to in my own mind is the Borg from Star Trek.
Definitely. Actually, you're right.
But then that only in that they are metallic and obviously alien, humanoid in aspects, because obviously they assimilate whatever it is they come into contact with. And Necrons don't assimilate in the same way at all. So really, it's just, and that's what I like about the Necrons, as you said. They're so far removed from everything else, and it's difficult to pinpoint them or relate them to other species that might have been written into other universes. Is there anything you can think of that they're close to?
I think there is maybe some of their look owes itself to the Cylon from Battlestar Galactica. Maybe there's again the kind of like the humanoid forms in the infantry, the actual people themselves, but their aerial units and things like this quite different. I think in the same way that the Borg from Star Trek there have a little bit to contribute to how the Necrons look. I think the Cylons probably do too, in that kind of that mechanical, synthetic, unknowable machine brain. Well, there's very little in the way of flowing kind of curves, is there? Everything is very angular. There's a lot of very basic geometric shapes. I think it's I'm really looking forward to seeing how the range rolls out for this new imagining of the Necron armies there. I think that there's, judging by some of the other pictures that I've seen of this lot, there's some pretty cool looking stuff on the way.
Yeah.
Would you be tempted to ever pick up one of these?
Well, yes, I think I would be. But I don't think I could do an entire army of Necrons. If ever I was to pick one of these, I think I would really enjoy painting a monolith. I would have to approach it at first like it was a piece of scenery.
Definitely.
You know what I mean?
I think
I'd have to apply that same
Not
sort of
far off, is it?
because it is so big. But the amount you could do with a monolith. I mean, I've seen some renditions of the old style monolith. There's been so many fantastic versions of monolith painted in all manner of weird and wonderful ways that it's almost like a blank canvas. The old one especially, because it was so flat. This
so
one,
plain, smooth.
This one, however, it doesn't leave that much to the imagination, but it leaves enough that you can really go to town with some of your paint schemes. How much do you weather it? I mean, you could make this thing look like rock instead of a metal. You could go the other way, make it look really bright, shiny metal. So I think it's an interesting enough piece, and it's unlike a lot of the Age of Sigmar models that have been released that for me are a little bit too much and a little bit too big and a bit too grandiose. This thing has bits of that which I like. For example, where the old warp gate used to be, which was just a sheet of green plastic molded to look like the wobble of a portal. They replaced that with the physical arcing energy lightning bolts that sort of link together, and that's obviously still that really same portal. And whilst that is modeled in similar ways to some of the larger fantasy style kits, it's not taken too much away from the old style monolith, which I can relate to very easily. So this really for me is an excellent upgrade to the old monolith without it impinging on my my love for the old Necron monolith,
for the original.
And I'd really love to have this kit to see what
it's going to be pricey. It's going to be pricey.
Would be, wouldn't it? Yeah,
I think so.
Maybe. I might buy it just for that just for that spider at the top.
Absolutely. I really want to have him cool. just poking over a rock, just looking over it.
I mean, the paint job that the studio have done for this though. What do you make of it?
I think it's superb. I rarely think they make a misstep, in truth. But I think they've done a really decent job. I really like the contrast between the really bright acidy green of all these sort of energetic areas there, that more muted jade green of the sort of very stonework areas on the sort of insides of this thing. And then that nice, just like lightly blue highlighted stony rockiness of the outside. The metal looks really crisp as well, not too bright, fairly worn, looking in keeping with the sort of damage this thing's acquired over its millennia of existence.
I like how matte the metal sections at the top look. Actually, they start from a
really
lovely
cool.
matte chrome, and they fade into that black. I think that's achieved really nicely. That's one of the things actually that I like the most about it, as far as the paint job goes. That really beautiful smooth metal look that just fades into that same color as the main body.
Very nice transition, isn't it?
Yeah, really, really impressive, and I really am a fan of that. And the cracked internal structure of this monolith, that jade, I like the fact that the internals are brighter than the externals.
Yeah, it's really cool, isn't it?
Yeah, it adds a real dynamicity to the model.
Well, I think that's quite a nice breakdown of a big old floating stone metal golf ball pyramid.
I think so too.
Yeah,
I think so too. Will you buy one?
You know, I think I'd really enjoy painting one. I don't think I'd buy one myself. Even if it were in my budget there, I reckon, for me anyway, it would be a pain in the butt to put together. I seem to remember the old one having a lot of issues actually putting it together.
Elastic bands were needed at points, let me tell you.
Of course. Maybe get some pinning action in there, Burlokk.
Well, exactly.
Maybe do a bit of that. It's not for me, Burlokk. It's not for me. If you came to me and said, I'd love to pin this model, but I wouldn't like to paint it, I'd paint it for you.
Would you?
Yeah, I'll paint it for you. Yeah.
Well, I'd want to paint the tomb spider at the back, though. Would you let me?
That would be the first bit I'd be on. I'd paint that up completely from top to bottom before I even put the undercoat on the rest. And then I would hand back. Then I would hand back the grey monolith to you and say, "I have no more use for this." But no, in all seriousness, I think it'd be a really cool model to paint. I can never see myself playing Necrons nor using this as a part in any of my wargaming. So for me, probably not. Although I think they've done a really good job, both paintwork and design-wise. A classic brought up to modern day standards.
Indeed.
With elan and flair. What do you reckon?
I totally agree. I've got something else to speak to you about, actually. Talking about up-to-date standards and elan and flair.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. There's something else that's sort of peeked its head up over the horizon in recent weeks, and this is the Primaris Invader ATV. Where are you going? Grumsworth. Come back. It's a Primaris buggy. Come on. What's not to love? Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back, Grumsworth. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all right. I just had to. I had to get away when you mentioned those last words.
Let's not mention them ever again, eh?
Let's not. Otherwise, you'll find me quickly lunging from my seat.
Well, what we can mention, however, is our next segment, where the magic happens. How about that?
Wonderful. Yeah, let's mention that.
Excellent. And this is a card that has been suggested to us. We have been invited to break this card down by one of our listeners by the name of Alex August.
Very good. Excellent. Yeah, nice.
Yeah. And he says, hey guys, if you could have a look at this card for me. It's been a sleeper card in Pauper for a long time. It's resilient to red removal and can now grow really big with so many ways of getting counters on it. And he is, of course, talking about the Phantom Tiger, isn't he?
I love it. Yeah, he's talking about it with some deep knowledge and lingo of the game as well. So I heartily approve. What we have here, folks, is the Phantom Tiger. It is a card from the Iconic Master set. It is a green card there. It is a creature, a cat spirit, no less. And it is available to you for the price of 1 green and 2 colourless mana. It's a common card, but a good one.
I'd say so, yeah.
Shall we first have a little look at the artwork on this beauty, which has been provided to us or to Wizards of the Coast. Let's have a look. It's Seb McKinnon. He's done a lovely job on this. What do you make of this very interesting spirit tiger prowling through these lovely viney sort of paddy field situation, Burlokk?
This is quite striking. Is the first word I think. It's quite a striking looking card, isn't it?
Very, yeah.
The first thing that jumps out to me about the artwork for this is how linear it looks.
Okay. Yeah.
We've got these vertical reeds, haven't we, coming up throughout the main body of the picture. And
That's
then
right.
cutting straight across it, you have both the river or the little lake or pond at the bottom, and then the phantom tiger itself that is quite straight, almost as if he's, I don't know, at odds with its surroundings because it's so unnatural because he's a phantom, maybe.
I think so. I think that's what lends the tiger itself his unnatural nature. Like you say, that kind of the line of its back there being sort of a nice, firm, straight shape there, angle. The slight dip of its head and its little ears there going into its face. That's kind of suggesting that it's something a little bit more fluid and maybe more graceful. But this even before you put on any of the nice little spangly star effects, the glowing colours of it, the lines that this creature is made out of are unnatural and really at odds, as you say, with the stalks of the growing
reeds
corn.
or
Yeah.
It looks quite like a dark piece, the dark water at the bottom of the piece of artwork, the sort of the almost quite muted dark foresty greens of the reeds, and then of course you've got this explosion of bright yellows and oranges and almost whites in places of this phantom tiger, who makes no, he's not making no effort to hide himself, clearly, like tigers normally would.
That's truth.
Your tiger would quite easily blend into a situation like that, whereas this phantom tiger, he's glowing with almost like a pride about him, isn't he? His eyes are pinpoints of light as well.
He is, yeah. Got a lot of white in that, and like you say, interesting that the composition of the picture, really, it's all very dark and natural, muted colours, and again to reinforce the spectral nature of this creature. Seb there has used very, very bright, striking colours, as well as the detail on the tiger itself. You can see that around its face, the lower portions of it, it's one of its forelimbs there reaching out, are kind of done in a speckled starlight kind of effect, like a cluster of will-o'-the-wisp.
Yeah. And I like how it's only really the top portion of the tiger that is actually
visible.
The lower part of its face, you can just about make out its mouth underneath its nose.
Yeah, you can do.
That looks see-through because you can see the reeds through that. So this thing really is sort of prowling through these reeds, and he doesn't look like he's moving them in any way. He's just passing through them.
He's not moving them at all, is he?
Yeah,
he truly is, as the card suggests, a cat spirit. He's just passing through it. It actually looks quite a peaceful looking spirit animal, doesn't it? I would say, judging by its face, it is looking straight at.
There's no mistaking that. Yeah,
it's looking straight at us. We've sort of stumbled into its territory almost as it's prowling.
It's the kind of look.
It is, but it doesn't look particularly baleful or malevolent. It doesn't look. It looks powerful, I would say, but it has that maybe that kind of spirit calm about it.
Yeah, maybe it was just coming to this small little edge of water to have a little drink.
It has,
and it's just going about its business quite happily, with its little glowing will-o'-the-wisps floating away behind it and above it.
Yeah. There's actually quite a good sense of motion in the picture as well.
Oddly, there is. Yeah, for something that is so,
as you say, so linear.
Oh, I mean, one of the words I wanted to use was almost statuesque, because it looked like this thing could be carved from stone, but actually you can see how he's clearly, the fact that the rest of his body goes out of the picture, out of shot, it looks as though it is moving through the image. So there is,
it does, doesn't it?
And the fact that it's such a perpendicular angle to the rest of the portrait does look like it's just cutting through these reeds. as he's moving through. And he stopped in motion to have a look at us.
To peer at us in that very cat-like way that they do when they're discovered, isn't it? So
that's it. Yeah,
it's nice that the artist has been able to capture the sort of the nature of a big cat there, and also blend it with the kind of spectral traits as well.
That's right. Yeah,
I think he's really succeeded in the in following up the title.
Yeah, it's quite a striking piece, actually. Yeah, and this was actually a rework from a different or another version of this card that was printed in an earlier year from the Judgment set.
Okay, yeah.
And this is, in my opinion, it's certainly different, and I think personally it's a better piece than the other one.
You do? Okay.
I do, but I won't dwell on the old one too much. But it is very different. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
I prefer this one for the way that Seb has put the composition together and the colors that he uses. The other one, much more of an older style of art direction from the older days of Magic the Gathering. But yeah, this I really do enjoy this one. And it was done quite recently in 2017. So it's a fairly recent rework.
Yeah, and it's definitely benefiting from the more modern style of art direction, isn't it? That has become a bit of a trademark for Magic the Gathering sets of this modern era.
That's right. Yeah, the digital approach to a lot of the artwork that's produced does allow for a lot more flexibility, and the artists can do the piece they're asked to do. And if there's any changes needed, of course, with a digital piece of art, everybody loves an edit. Everyone loves an edit undo, don't they?
They love an edit undo. It would be so useful in real life.
Oh, wouldn't it just?
Really, really would. Yeah. Okay, then. So moving on to the mechanical nature of this card there. No flavor text for it, which is a shame, but I think we can all imagine a little bit of flavor text in there ourselves.
Yes.
I like to think that this thing is looking at me and speaking to me with a very human voice without moving its lips. What are you doing here?
Drinking from this river.
You might want to move along. Right, so the Phantom Tiger enters the battlefield with 2 1+1+ counters on it. If damage would be dealt to the Phantom Tiger, prevent that damage. Remove a +1/+1 counter from the Phantom Tiger. So essentially, when this creature comes into play there, it starts off as a 1/0, and then it pushes up to a 3/2, which is not too bad with mana cost-wise, but it also essentially gets a little bit of sort of cheat death going on, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. So, if any damage is dealt to it at all from any source, as our contributor Alex, our guest,
rightly has
pointed out, it's quite resilient to red removal. And he mentions red removal specifically because red removal tends to be quite directed at a target. So a lightning bolt, for example, that does 3 damage to target creature or player or any target.
Classic.
Yeah, the lightning bolt, you target the Phantom Tiger with it. Well, you won't take all those 3 points of damage at all. You just remove a +1/+1 counter.
One of them. Yeah.
So he can really soak up a lot of damage.
Which for 3 mana is and it's a creature that benefits from having counters on it.
Yeah.
So if you are working that sort of angle with your deck where you've got cards that load up extra counters on.
That's right. Yeah, this
does make it very resilient.
It does make it very resilient, yeah. And it hails back, in my mind, a little to our last episode where we spoke about the Shine Wind, which was also relating to +1/+1 counters. So this tiger, I think, this card, should I say, has a home in a few different archetypes, actually, because of its creature type. You generally find that a lot of the tribal builds are themed around a particular creature.
Okay, we
spoke about some tribal builds before now, goblins being one of them. Make a goblin deck. It's a bit reckless, but it's great fun. Also, the same is also true for both cats and spirits. There are 2 separate archetypes for those. Really.
That's right.
Quite successful archetypes within Magic. So this guy would fit in nicely, provided he matches the color pie. Also, Abzan mid-range is quite a good card for that. So a deck that is quite good, in, not in the early game, not quite in the end game, but it aims to win by turn 4, 5, 6. As a bit of a slow wind up before it hits its combo or before it hits its critical mass. This kind of card's good for that because you can lay it down quite early with a little bit of ramp, as in getting more land cards out quicker. play it early on, and it becomes that stalling card for your enemy. You can use it as a blocker. And it doesn't matter what's been run into it. It's not going to die. It's only going to lose a +1/+1 counter. And you can combine that with, as you rightly said, more +1/+1 counters just to make this thing bigger, give it more staying power. And of course, it's not legendary. So you could go for a full play set of 4 of these in your deck and have 4 of these out on the battlefield, which would be quite impressive.
Yeah. And very pretty too. Because it's a fine looking card, isn't it?
It is, yeah, it is. It is good for Pauper, as our contributor also says, a Pauper being the format in which you only use common cards.
Yeah.
And this is quite a good card, and it is a bit of a sleeper in a sense. And for those who don't know, a sleeper card is something that is quietly really good, and not many people use it.
That's right.
Before long, a card like this may well catch on. People might start using it when they realize how good it actually is. But he's right to say that it's a bit of a sleeper, this one. So if you play Pauper and you like to make a green deck or 2, it might be worth picking up a couple of Phantom Tigers to go in your deck.
Yeah, your sleeping cat spirits.
That's it. Yeah, that's right. What would you give it as a playability, Grumsworth?
I think in the manners that we've discussed, I would think it's going to be up there around about 7.
Yeah, I'd give it around a 7 or an 8 myself. Yeah, for sure.
Because I think at its mana cost, it comes over as being really efficient. Like you say, the fact that it has both the cat and the spirit keywords with it there, very useful if you're building a deck themed and ready to buff and otherwise make use of those keywords there. This is going to slot in quite nicely. I also think it does work with the colour pie there being green, because you're probably looking at a white and green deck.
That's right.
To snuggle this in, aren't you?
That's it. Yeah. No, that's why I mentioned Abzan, which is white, green, and black. A lot of those colours work really nice in synergy with the green.
Yeah, and it's common, so you can pick this card up. Cheap as chips. Where do you reckon you could pick it up from?
Roguesgaming.com. They sell them.
I reckon you could.
They're our sponsor, aren't they?
They are. They're our boys. Yeah. They'll have plenty of those in their back pockets.
Yeah. Pick up a few of them if you can. Yeah, so great choice, Alex August. If I'm saying that right, Alex August, however you pronounce it, thank you. Great choice.
Yeah,
wonderful choice there.
Yeah.
And Seb McKinnon, you can't go wrong with a Seb McKinnon bit of artwork, can you? He does some wonderful work.
Yeah. I'm not massively familiar, I must say.
I'll show you some later after we sign off from this podcast, brother. I'll show you some Seb McKinnon work. Yeah.
But I like what he's done here. I think it's really nice. A fine job. Right. I can feel, I feel older than I did about an hour ago, Burlokk.
Do you? You don't look it.
Now, you're too kind.
Which way round is it? You feel it, you don't look it. I can't remember which way round it goes.
Yeah. Well, I feel and look it. I feel and look about an hour older. You know what's going on, don't you?
Yeah, I do.
Our time's bloody gone and elapsed.
The cold hand of death lays itself on our very shoulder.
It does. I'm always trying to brush it away, warm up that patch, but it never really works.
That's right. Yeah, the warmth of my blood is stolen away.
It is stolen away. It's stolen away like our time here. Sadly,
what a pity.
Fine listeners. Father Time has done his old number on us again. He's gnarled fist. He's banging at our doors. Yep. Started with a small, very low-level knock to the point where if we don't give him his due, he's going to be booting that door down with his gnarled old feet.
Yep.
and raging in with his, one would imagine, long flowing beard.
And we can't have that now, can we, Grumsworth?
We can't have that. We can't have that at all.
So where can our lovely viewers and listeners get hold of us if they wish to?
I mean, on the street, obviously. Should you see us walking by, you're more than welcome to come up and do as you will, really.
Yeah, we'll be standing under the swinging, squeaky sign of Oldman's.
Yeah, I mean, that's where you can find us most often. Most days, in fact. Yeah. Or you can find us on YouTube with a bit more of the preamble here. You can find that for if you want the visual stimulation of our leering faces. Or you can find us on Spotify if you want us just rammed directly into your ear holes.
That's it. Yep. I think we're pretty much on most of the major podcast platforms by now. So wherever you decide to have a look for us, please try and check us out there if you can. Yeah,
It'd be lovely. Yeah, it'd be lovely if you could give us a little bit of a thumbs up. If you think we're doing a sterling job, and a big hard thumbs down if you think we're shocking.
absolutely. Yeah, either or will be accepted gracefully.
It will be, yeah, with massive humility, maybe gritted teeth.
Talking of humility, Grumsworth,
Yes.
there is the final nail in our coffins for this evening to be done with. And
some sort of quote, is it?
I believe so. Yeah. Have you got one prepared for us?
I'm prepared to read a quote that someone else has prepared for us.
Brilliant. Well, I'm going to say my goodbyes then. Thank you all. It's been an absolute pleasure. To you, Grumsworth, as well.
It's been a pleasure, Burlokk. There's a bit of a thing about this quote. I'm going to keep it brief, right? But I think this needs to be mentioned. I think I should put a voice on for it. I'm sure you all feel that also, right? Right. So we're going to do a voice. The character is known as the Oracle and Vec. Now, I don't know if this character is of the male flavour or the female flavour, right? Now, Burlokk over there might know, but he's already said his goodbyes, so he cannot. So I think the Oracle and Vec, I think she's a woman, right? But I'm going to do a gravelly, grainy voice just because I kind of like to do them. So I'm going to wish you all a very good evening. I hope you've enjoyed this long and rambling conversation. And I'm going to leave you with the words of the Oracle and Vec. There shall be a vast shout, and then a vaster silence.
You've been listening to The Preamble. Find us on YouTube, Spotify, and many other podcast platforms. And if you want to contact us, just send an email to thepreamble@gmail.com or find us at The Preamble on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook. Your hosts were Grumsworth and Burlokk, brought to you by roguesgaming.com. Special thanks to our contributors, our spotlight artist, and of course, to all of you. See you next time.